I grew up in Silver Lake. So coming to Northridge in 1988 was a huge culture shock for me.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but it was majority white.
Now, like, everyone knows about Korea and Korean culture, K-pop, K-drama, and all that stuff. But back then, only thing people knew about Korea was Korean War. At that time, Asian community was kind of like the silent group on
Hmm.
campus. People, non-Asians would, refer to almost every Asian as, Chinese, your gook, your chinks. Filipinos, I remember a lot of the Filipinos were, non-Asians were referring to them as like, oh, you're Hispanic, you're from Mexico.
We really did feel invisible. There was one time there was an Associated Students kind of retreat, and everything was about, black and white, just black and white. And we were all made, to put ourselves in a position of being black and white. I was completely lost because I couldn't identify with being black or white, and nothing was ever being said about others, right? And I remember raising up my hand and I said, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm having a really hard time relating to this because you're making us choose whether we identify between being black or white, and I can't identify with either. So I'm just sitting here like, really lost.
But I don't want to paint it as a bad picture like us versus them, but please recognize in the 80s and 90s, there was no love for the minorities, none.
Mhm.
So we just banded together. We found anyone that looked non-white, and we didn't care. We just kept on pushing.
I wasn't prepared for it. So I really sought this out. I sought out other people that would share my experiences.
When you say my job was to mobilize the students, who gave you that job?
I felt like Bob Suzuki gave me that job.
Okay.
I felt like he had a vision, and he was looking for someone like me. I hit the ground running when I got here, and I knew I wanted to meet up with Asian American students. And at that time, I met Gary Maeda, Kathy Lee, Susan Toma, Edward Lee, Dean Mimura, people like that. And I would just hang with them and talk about whatever issues we wanted to talk about. A lot of it did start to focus on, what are the needs of Asian American students? How come there isn't an Asian American Studies department here? We've got Chicano Studies, we've got African American Studies. How come we don't have an Asian American Studies department? And we've got quite a few people here.
For future generations, what would you like people to know about the early years of OFSA and the Asian American Studies Department?
What it was like not to have it. All our energy was towards this. I remember I first started going to CSUN, all my grades were like A's and, the lowest were like B's. And after we were getting OPSA off the ground and I became president of FASA, I was dropping out of classes.
People might think that, oh, like, we were smart and we knew what we were doing. No, absolutely no idea what we were doing. And I think like Liz Parker, she gave us a lot of guidance, pointed in the, right direction. Thinking back, I'm like, this group, you know, started that. APSA worked with others to create the Asian American Studies. That was a huge, huge monumental accomplishment. And at that time, if we knew how difficult it was, I don't know, we would have put in so much effort. We probably, I think a lot of us would have given up.
Who was our counselor?
Warren Furumoto. That was the name.
Warren Furumoto. Okay, because he said a great quote, and the quote that will always resonate to me was, "Alfred, you have to do this because there is a Black Student Association, there's a Chicano There's nothing representing the Asian area. So you have to do these things to help represent us. And so that's stuck all the way through.
Kenyon Chan, I think all of us would agree, is very skillful leader. But he was chair of the department. There were only a few tenure track professors, basically Kenyon, Dr. Gordon Nakagawa, and Dr. George Uba, and those were the tenure track faculty. And then they had lecturers like us, even before we started classes. It was like August. Dr. Kenyon Chan said, you gotta come to campus and we'll have lunch, the new faculty, and we're gonna go to lunch with the dean. Who's the dean? The dean was Dr. Jorge Garcia, right? Amazing, amazing dean, a longtime dean of humanities. And I said, okay, I'd love to meet the dean, right? Got dressed up, went to this fancy lunch, and the dean says to me, you're gonna teach only one class or two classes? And Dr. Kenyon Chan says, well, yeah, Dean, if I let her teach three, we have to give her benefits. The Dean Garcia says, what? Kenyon, is that all? You just need benefits? Will you take the job if you get benefits? I said, is there dental? Because I had just paid like $1,000 for this root canal on my credit card, right? And he's like, oh yes, we have very good dental. I said, I'll take the job. I'll take the job. Can you teach, another class, one or two more classes? Yeah, sure. And Kenyon says, are you sure, Dean? And he says, absolutely. Is that all you need? What else do you need? These are great faculty. Give them whatever they want. Whatever they want. And I said, wow. And then they shook, they did their handshake, shake on it. Okay, great, done. So I was a full-time lecturer for 6 years. That was only supposed to be 1 year in 1994, but I stayed till 2000.
As far as Pacific Voices, that was like a passion project for me. So that had really nothing to do with the sundial, other than me getting the phone number of the printer so I could get that thing printed. But other than that, they weren't connected at all. There was me in front of my computer. I had a couple friends come over and we would write stuff. It started out as more like newsy stuff, and then I wanted to look like a newspaper, and so we would cover stuff that wasn't getting covered in the sundial. I wish I'd reviewed it now, but I have some issues over that are with me that we can look at. But it was more covering things that weren't being covered, but also I think we had we had some student groups that have events, or there would be like a famous actor person that we could feature. It sort of started out like that. So like when we got the Asian house, which is Glen Omonson House now, that's something we covered in the paper. Like that was above the fold kind of story.
I'm just curious. And the way Dr. Chan describes it, that when he first met me, I was the kid in the back of the class, just kind of like, I'm here. And at the end of my career at CSUN, I was a leader on campus. And so that truly gave me a voice and grew me as a person that helps me to this day as to who I am and how I carry myself and approach people. I never envisioned myself as someone who could lead others to anything or teach anything. And it was just, I remember that how Dr. Chan, he changed my life with the way he approached me and what he talked to me about and the way he saw me. Like he said, I came into school and I was like, oh, I'm just going to take this class and see what it's like. Literally, I was probably like this when I came to class. And by the end of my career, I was like, yeah, I can go to UC Santa Barbara and speak. I can go to Cal State LA and speak. And that was something that I never knew I could do.